I'm Laura Ingraham, and this is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. A big Friday show for you, of course. In moments, we're going to speak with former Speaker Newt Gingrich about a stunning non-concession in that Georgia gubernatorial election and a promised federal lawsuit by the Democrat Stacey Abrams. This after she so slowly comes to the conclusion she's not going to be the next governor of Georgia. Plus, we're going to bring you a report that the rest of the media would rather ignore. It's a shocking story about what's really happening to women and children inside one of those caravans in Mexico. Raymond Arroyo is here also for Friday Follies. He's going to expose this emotional GoFundMe campaign that looks like it defrauded thousands of people. Plus, he discovers why Van Jones is finally praising the president. So stay here for that. But first, an unprecedented and dangerous move in Georgia. Stacey Abrams came out earlier today, and while she claimed she probably doesn't have a path for victory in this race, she's still falling short of making a concession to Brian Kemp. Further, she says she'll file a federal lawsuit to challenge, quote, gross mismanagement of the Georgia electoral process. So let me get this straight. You don't like how the election is playing out, so you threaten legal action and at one point call for an entirely new election. After browbeating then-candidate Trump back in 2016 over whether or not he would accept the results of the presidential election, the Democrats have now made this constant challenge posture their new normal. Like, no one likes to lose, I don't. But this is all getting a little bit ridiculous. Here with reaction is someone who represented the great state of Georgia as Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. And Newt, first question. Would the Abrams camp feel this emboldened, do you think, if Democratic leaders like they had Hillary Clinton down there, had Cory Booker, Sherrod Brown was there, egging them on, basically saying if she doesn't win, the election was stolen?
Yeah, let's start with that. You have a whole series of Democrats who've just said bluntly, if our candidate doesn't win, they stole the election. Now, they have no proof of it. But they have a whole model now, whether it's yelling racist or whatever it is, where if they smear you enough, this is the Kavanaugh model repeated over and over again. So Georgia, they want to set up Stacey Abrams so she'll be the person who had the election stolen from her. So for the next 4 years, she can run for governor as the person who should have been governor, except it was stolen from her. Of course, since she's black, it must have been an act of racism, and therefore the whole thing compounds. This is a game they're playing. If you look at Florida, which has a similar problem, we now know, thanks to USA Today, the Democrats actually were methodically planning to cheat on the election after it became so close, and actually were printing up materials that were designed just to steal the election. They all only backed down because they got caught. But we're seeing in both Florida and Georgia a very similar pattern. If you don't let the Democrat winning, then you're cheating. And it's been stolen because you're not allowed to win. They're supposed to win.
Well, Newt, the Georgia code on when you can contest the result of an election is very clear. Section 21-2522, as a result of a primary or election may be contested on one of the following grounds: misconduct, fraud, or irregularity by any primary or election official or official sufficient to change or place in doubt the result. There's no evidence that any of that happened here. Yet again, as you pointed out, it's almost like none of the facts matter. This is all about 2020. This is all about building the momentum for more identity politics going into 2020 with the goal of finally flipping Georgia to a total blue state. They want to do that in Florida, Newt. They want to do it in Texas, and they've made some gains in Texas. And the suburbs around Dallas, they won Pete Sessions' seat. So this is a play that they're making across the country, even in the reddest of states like Texas.
Sure. I mean, let's start with the idea. Why would we think they want to obey the law? They don't think the law matters. They think the law represents the old order. Stacey Abrams said at one point in the campaign, her blue wave includes legal and illegal people. Now, then she said, oh, I didn't really mean that. But she does mean it. And again, over and over, everywhere you turn, California, which has had a weird series of votes. Arizona. The fact is, again and again, you have a Democratic Party dedicated to winning at any cost, dedicating to steal the election if they have to, and if they can't win, dedicated to blaming the Republican. So you have this weird experience. They try to steal the election. If they fail, they say you're stealing it because you won honestly. And sadly, because of the liberal news media, they get away with a lot of this.
Well, Newt, we have other very bizarre things happening. And I'm now, I can't believe we're already looking at 2020. But a woman that you have put out front and center as someone who you think might be the nominee in 2020 is Kamala Harris. And yesterday, I think she shocked even Democrats with how she described ICE. OK, so you made this. Let's first play Newt's prediction the last time you were on about the senator we're speaking about.
I personally think it's going to be Kamala Harris. I'm going to stick with that unless she doesn't run. I think an African-American woman, former attorney general from California, just has enormous resources, and I think she clears the field.
Like I said, you predicted that she was going to be the 2020 nominee. Now, alluding to what I just referenced, this is what she said about immigration's customs enforcement just yesterday.
Are you aware of the perception of many about how the power and the discretion at ICE is being used to enforce the laws? And do you see any parallels?
I do not see any parallels between
I'm talking about perception.
Officers and agents.
I'm talking about perception.
I do not see a parallel between what is constitutionally mandated as it relates to enforcing the law.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
I see no.
Are you aware that there's a perception
that puts ICE in the same category as the KKK?
Yeah, the KKK, Newt. That's where we are now with a duly appointed agency under the umbrella of Homeland Security. That's what it is. It's all about race.
But in a Democratic primary, would you rather be the person who is condemning law enforcement or the person who's defending law enforcement? Do you want to be the person who's defending sanctuary cities, which are an explicit act of breaking the law? Or do you want to be the person who says, maybe we shouldn't break the law and should turn in illegal criminals? Now, you know, in a Democratic primary, it is a dead loser to be pro-ICE and to be pro-locking up criminals.
I get it. I get it.
To you
now.
and me, this sounds weird, but I'm not sure it's weird for them.
Yeah, so for them it makes perfect sense. I want to play one more thing for you, Newt. This is from your friend Joe Scarborough, former Republican, Panhandle native. What he said about what's happening to the Republican Party in the former stronghold, for instance, of Orange County in California. Let's watch.
You look out at Orange County, my gosh, as Tom Nichols said, congratulations, Republicans. You just lost Reagan County. It looks like it's going to be a complete wipeout. I remember when Loretta Sanchez beat B1 Bob Dornan in Orange County back in the 1990s. It was a stunner, an absolute shock. Now, Mika, it is a sea of blue, a huge, huge crushing defeat for Trump Republicanism.
Is that what was defeated in California, Trump Republicanism, Newt? It's a very facile analysis by the towering intellects over at MSNBC.
No, look, I think we have to face the reality that in the largest state in the country, California, and the fourth largest state in the country, New York, the size of the union-based machines are now so enormous that we don't frankly know right now how to compete with them. I mean, that's how big this problem is. And so I think we've got to confront the reality that we are dealing with a very profound change. We just had a candidate for city council in Seattle, an independent, withdraw from the race because his wife was being threatened, her job was being threatened, her safety was being threatened, and he wrote a very poignant memo to all of his supporters, sent it out as an email, saying that he was frightened to even run in Seattle because the forces of the left now are so vicious and so hostile. And we have a real problem in our largest state, California, and our fourth largest state, New York, in that both now are centers of enormous union-based power that is so brutal and has so much money that we frankly right now don't know how to compete with them.
Well, and I think, look, there's mass immigration has changed California, no doubt about it. And in many races, there's no Republican running at all. They're just basically two Democrats running against each other. And I don't think this has been happening over years. This didn't just start happening with Trump. That's the part of the facile analysis. This has been a process over 2 decades, at least in California. Newt, thank you very much. And here to respond now, my panel, Corey Lewandowski, Trump 2016 campaign manager, Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary and Fox News contributor, and Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor. Ari, I want to go to you first on this issue. We'll go backward here. We'll start with the challenges the Republican Party faces in a state like California, all those electoral votes, and then going to Texas, where the Republicans struggled in the Dallas area, losing, Pete Sessions lost his seat. Other Republicans fell. What's going on there, and what about moving into 2020? Does this require recalibration of strategy?
Well, look, Laura, I continue to think that the Republicans have got to expand with Hispanic voters and with African-American voters. If we think that our ideas are the best ideas to lift up and help all Americans, we can and must do better. Interestingly, Donald Trump did do better with those two groups than Mitt Romney did. And we have to do even better than that. That's going to be a key to success in 2020, in addition to turning out the blue-collar working-class Americans who increasingly are becoming Republican.
Byron, I want to go to you. Big news today in this fight that CNN had with the White House. A Trump appointee, a district court judge, at least temporarily ordered that the White House credential be restored to Acosta on a Fifth Amendment rationale. What is your take?
Yeah, he really based it very clearly on Jim Acosta not being given any sort of due process before his White House hard pass was revoked. He did not rule, the judge did not rule on the whole First Amendment idea, whether there is a First Amendment right to be part of the White House
that wasn't
press corps. But a couple of things are going to happen, though, and President Trump made this very clear after this decision. Before this happened, there was not a good behavior standard for White House correspondents. There was not a code. Everybody was expected to behave professionally, and problems were worked out informally. Now there's going to be a code. It's pretty clear there will be some sort of written down rules which will make it easier for the White House to eject reporters in the future because of this Acosta fight.
I was looking at some old Reagan footage today, and during one of the turkey pardons, and it was hilarious. I mean, it was actually Chris Wallace shouting a question at Reagan, but it was aggressive, but it was such a different era. It was such a different. Reagan, frankly, behaved in a different way than Trump, and the press behaved. It was a completely different era. It was. You watch it going, oh, my God, that doesn't seem that long ago, but it was 30-plus years ago.
Well, a turkey pardon is different from an Eastern news.
No, but they're shouting questions. I'm just saying they're shouting questions. And it was just a moment where I thought, wow. Corey, this is what the president said today after the news came down about the Acosta case.
A federal judge who you appointed has just ruled that you must give CNN reporter Jim Acosta his press pass back. Your reaction to the ruling?
It's fine. I mean, it's not a big deal. What they said, though, is that we have to create rules and regulations for conduct, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing that. We're going to write them up right now. It's not a big deal. And if he misbehaves, we'll throw him out, or we'll stop the news conference.
Corey, he didn't seem in any way, flabbergasted or upset. I think he has taken so many aggressive questions. He took like 60 last week alone, questions at that press event. And I think all he wants is, okay, he'll answer and then maybe get a follow-up, and then we got to move on. It's not the Jim Acosta hour of press conferences.
Well, this president, as you know, has taken more questions from the press than any of his predecessors, if not all of them combined. He's always available to the press with the interviews he's done. Look, just go back and look at the Leslie Stahl interview he did with 60 Minutes. She interrupted him something like 130 times during that process, and you juxtapose that with when she did Barack Obama and interrupted him 4 times. He's not afraid of tough questions, but there is a decorum factor that is going to take place in the White House. The American people should have that, and the president, by definition, as the leader of the free world, should have some decorum, and he'll take a tough question, but it's going to be respectfully done, and I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Ari, you had suggested earlier that maybe if this kind of thing happens again, the president should just say, guys, when you want to do an actual press conference, let me know, and I'll be back, but this isn't working. This is not. Do you still think that's the way to go here?
Well, I would do a couple things, Laura. Number one, for the briefing that Sarah has, I would take the briefing off of TV. It just makes these reporters into grandstanders, and Jim Acosta, of course, is the grandest of the grandstanders. And it'll turn it much more into a serious briefing, which is good for the press corps and good for the White House. But secondly, you know, Jim Acosta really has pushed the boundaries and gone way too far. It is one thing to shout questions and ask challenging questions. Every reporter can do it. That's the essence of their job. More power to them. But you don't espouse personal policy positions, and that's what Jim Acosta does, and that's what crosses the line. So my big question here is, has Jim Acosta learned any lessons now that he's going to get his hard pass back? Will he continue to grandstand? Will he continue to try to ask 4 questions? And if he does, then
of course he will.
President Trump is 100% right. Decorum is important in all aspects of life.
Now, Arthur Schwartz was tweeted out something that it's commonly known among members of the press that he's not the most popular guy in the press corps, and that people within the White House press ranks are getting a little tired of this whole thing because they actually have some substantive questions to ask, and I can imagine it gets annoying. I also want to get your thoughts, all 3 of you, on what's going on with George Conway. Full disclosure, he is an old friend of mine. I've known him for 30 years. We both clerked for the same appellate court judge. So George is an old friend of mine. But it is very interesting when the husband of a senior counselor to the president becomes one of the main critics of the administration. And he actually spoke out in a Yahoo podcast on the subject earlier today. Watch.
I'm watching this thing, and, you know, it's like the administration is like showing a dumpster fire. And I realize, you know, this guy's going to be at war with the Justice Department. If I get this door prize, I'm going to be in the middle of a department he's at war with. Like, why would anybody want to do this? Right.
He was talking about the Solicitor General job, which he was up for, and I believe he wanted. And he said some other things at the beginning that Kellyanne is not thrilled about how he's, you know, opposing the administration, but they actually agree on most issues. Byron, this is kind of wild. I mean, you had Carville and Matlin, but they were kind of it was kind of a performance with them. This is a little different.
It was always a show. And what we don't know, the inner workings of their marriage, these are personal things we don't know. There's a lot of speculation in Washington. Either this is some sort of civil war that is not really sustainable as long as Kellyanne Conway is a senior top advisor to the president, but there are other people who are speculating that maybe it is kind of all of a show, and they're, you know, making sure that they're going to be in good shape afterwards. But by going on Yahoo and by doing all this,
we invited him here, by the way, and he declined.
By doing all this tweeting, I mean, George Conway is a very, very public voice now, and when you just saw the whole dumpster fire stuff, that's pretty strong.
Corey, he has substantive issues with the way the administration's handled a number of constitutional issues. I know for a fact George is one of the smartest legal minds in America. He's brilliant. But, you know, he was reviled by the left during the whole Lewinsky thing for his role in giving information or it was a trip, Isikoff, that whole deal. But now he's kind of a celebrated figure for taking on the president.
Well, he is, and, you know, he has a new group that's formed now to combat the president's agenda, which I really don't understand. Look, this is a man who wanted to be part of the administration, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and that happens to a lot of people. And I don't know if it's just sour grapes that he didn't have the opportunity to become the Solicitor General, but whatever it is, people are entitled to their own opinions. But I think it's probably hurting his wife's relationships inside the building, because it'd be a very difficult thing to have a spouse that's so forward-facing against your boss. And look, Kellyanne's a friend of mine, and she's a very good friend of mine. And I feel for her because I can only imagine the pressure inside the building that she must feel when she has to answer questions about her husband's public tweets.
Ari, we got to go, but is this sustainable long term?
Well, nobody could put themselves in somebody else's marriage. You know, I just
No,
think
I'm not
the
talking
sad
about that.
personal
No,
part
I'm not
of it
talking
is-
about that. Ari, I'm talking about her working in the White House with the president, as steamed as I bet he is, but this is ongoing. This has got to be a hard dynamic for her inside that White House.
Yeah, I don't think from external sources or from people who she works with it's not sustainable, because she is Kellyanne. Everybody knows what a powerful, effective, good supporter of the president she is. So I don't think she has to worry about her inside flanks. I just think it's the pressure the poor woman is under. You know, when you leave the White House, you can try to let go of all the thick skin you have. You go home, you unwind. It's hard. The last thing you want to do is keep your thick skin on when you get home. Poor
That's
Kellyanne.
a good point. That's a great point. You don't want to keep debating at home. Oh, the fantastic panel, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. And up next, a shocking report about what's going on inside the caravan that has already reached our border. Stay there. There are disturbing new reports on that massive migrant caravan storming our southern border. Now, listen to what the Mexican Interior Minister says they're seeing.
Specific groups of people have organized women, pregnant women, and children to go first in a group of people that was marching towards the border. This created a great risk that if the border gate was not open, then they could have died from being crushed from the pressure of those marching behind them. That is quite perverse.
Echoing some of the comments we brought you a few weeks back when we first started covering the caravan, and indeed confirmed across the board. Now, Fox's William Longinus is in Tijuana, Mexico tonight with new developments. William.
Well, Laura, that is the bridge into the United States. That's where the caravan migrants want to go. Problem is, they have to get in line behind the migrants that you see behind me from Mexico, from Africa, from Central America. So here in Tijuana, reality is setting in for a lot of these people. Let me explain why. The doors to the United States are closing. The secure border here in San Diego, it is substantial. Helicopters, horses, ATVs. Also, you can no longer enter anywhere on the border and just be allowed in. Trump changed the policy. Those who do claim asylum and have to wait for months. These guys got no money to go home, so they're stuck in a city, either with inadequate or already filled shelters.
It's difficult because, you know, we don't have restrooms, the kitchen is short.
So remember when the caravan left Honduras? Well, we still had a policy at that time of catch and release. Didn't matter how spurious your claim, you got to go live with family somewhere in the United States. That is no longer the case. Also, the U.S. is now taking in a limited number of asylum cases. Today, it was only 30, and that existing list was 1,050. So you're looking at a 5-week to maybe even a 4-month wait. So they have to get in line like everyone else.
Person, he need to stay, sign your name, and where are you coming from? And he need to wait for your number. One number, that's 10 person.
I want to just get my number. If they let you, they let me give me to me. I wait. I don't know how long I'm away for.
So the thing's going to happen here. People are going to grow impatient. I already talked to several young men who are just going to jump the border. They'll likely get caught, but that's what they're going to do. As for that violent incident a few nights ago, the caravan migrants started to mix it up with some locals at Playa, the beach neighborhood near here. They don't want them there. They were trying to set up camp there, and obviously with 5,000 people, that's substantial. And clearly right now, Tijuana doesn't have the means to take care of them. So they're between a rock and a hard spot. Laura?
William, the folks in Tijuana have expressed their desire to have this situation ended, correct? They do not want these migrants continuing to camp out in their town. Is that all that reporting right?
That's true. They don't want them here, especially for a substantial period of time. I mean, there's a pipeline of Central Americans constantly going to the United States, right? 1,400 arrests a day of illegal people at the border. They don't want them here substantially. They're trying to feed them, but last night, I got to tell you, as soon as a food truck would show up, I mean, people would literally just jump on it, almost fighting for food. And they don't have the means to take care of 5,000 people. They don't want them here for that long. They don't want them to set up camp in their parks or at their beaches. So that tension is going to only increase in all likelihood. Laura?
William, thanks so much. And William's been covering the caravan for several weeks, doing an amazing job. And we're going to continue to cover this until the threat is over, until the situation is dealt with, which will likely be many more months. So why is CNN's Brian Stelter saying it, quote, faded from the news and that Obama predicted it would happen? Here now, conservative commentator and author of the book Resistance is Futile, Ann Coulter, and Univision anchor Enrique Acevedo, who is on the border in Tijuana tonight. Enrique, I want to start with you because you heard William Longinus's report. He's been with the caravan for weeks, covering it, especially in Tijuana. The people of Tijuana don't want this. We have reports that children and women have disappeared from one of the caravans, perhaps kidnapped by human traffickers. That news from a USA Today piece from yesterday. What are your thoughts here? I mean, this seems very, very concerning.
Well, first of all, to answer your question, Laura, the part of the community, part of local residents here in Tijuana have criticized the presence of the migrant caravan, but the overwhelming majority have shown a compassionate and humanitarian reaction of to their presence. So it's not all of Tijuana. Some people in Tijuana don't want them here, but I would say the majority have shown this compassion and empathy. On the other hand, about the disappearance, the alleged disappearance of a large group of migrants that were part of the caravan, it just goes to show you the difficult conditions, the incredible violence that they face in their journey through Mexico towards the U.S. border. So the caravan is not just one thing. Right. It has many realities. It has thousands of different stories. So it's not very helpful to frame the debate in absolutes. I think there's context and there's nuance, and we should be looking at that too.
But that's why President Obama said back in 2014, do not bring your children. The trek is dangerous. Do not bring them. He said, because you will not be allowed to stay. Of course, most of them were allowed to stay. Ann Coulter, you remember that. I mean, these are now 100 children and women who are gone. And this is a report from Arturo Paimbat, Ombudsman for Human Rights in Oaxaca, told the HuffPo Mexico. He has it on very good authority, very good reporting. So this magnet in the United States of previously at least catch and release, Pueblos Sin Fronteras, organizing this, they are putting people's lives in danger, are they not?
Yes. Yes, they are. And President Trump has already signed an executive order on human trafficking. This was obviously a campaign stunt. They hoped the caravan would arrive on America's border just before the midterm elections to show that not only do we not have a wall, but Trump can't stop them. Here you have this huge invasion coming in. They could show the women separated from their children again. They planned this as a campaign stunt, but then Trump took them up on it, called their bluff, said he's sending troops to the border, and suddenly Obama is talking about it being, what did he call it, a myth of the caravan? Well, it's still coming. And the people who did arrange this, Countries Without Borders in Spanish, I mean, they are setting up these women and children to be raped, murdered, sold to other people, as you say, from all this reporting we're getting now. They ought to be prosecuted for inciting, for encouraging human smuggling. We have laws on the books about this. They set this in motion. Look, I don't want all of Latin America moving to our country, but I don't want them being murdered and raped along the way. Leftists don't care. They don't care. They wanted a political stunt, and women and children are being killed because of it.
All right, guys, thanks so much tonight. And a GoFundMe scam, political unity in time for Thanksgiving. And
from America's News headquarters, I'm Brian Yennis. The CIA concludes that Saudi's crown prince ordered the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. That's according to multiple media reports. The agency reportedly has high confidence in its findings, but the Saudi government is denying that claim. A contributor for the Washington Post, Khashoggi was a U.S. resident from Saudi Arabia. He was last seen entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October 2nd. His brutal murder sparked international outrage and condemnation. President Trump heads to California tomorrow to visit victims of those devastating wildfires. At least 71 people have died in the so-called Camp Fire in Northern California, and that total is expected to climb with more than 1,000 still missing. At least 3 people have died in the Woolsey Fire in Southern California. I'm Brian Yennis. Now, back to the Ingraham Angle.
Short news. It's Friday, and that means it's time for Friday Follies. And on the docket today, disturbing new details emerge about a GoFundMe campaign and unexpected political reunions. For all the details, we're joined by Raymond Arroyo, Fox News contributor, New York Times bestselling author of the Will Wilder series. Raymond, tell me about this heartwarming GoFundMe story that we all followed back in November 2017. Tell us what happened.
Laura, you remember the details of this.
No, I don't.
A woman named Kate McClure finds herself in distress, and a homeless man becomes the Good Samaritan. He gives her his last $20. They launched a GoFundMe campaign for him. Here they are in Good Morning America. Watch this.
I was driving down 95 and ran out of gas, so I pulled over to the side of the road. He walked up and he said, "Get back in the car, lock the doors, I'll be back."
Got her gas to help her get back on her way. Wasn't expecting anything in return.
Is he blind, by the way?
No, that's Johnny Bobbitt. He's a veteran. He's not blind.
Oh, okay.
And they launched this GoFundMe campaign to raise money. They raised $400,000 for him. Now turns out the Burlington County prosecutors are charging Kate, her husband, and this Johnny character, Johnny Bobbitt, with conspiracy to commit theft by deception and theft by deception. Here's what they did. They had met, there's evidence now emerging, these people met at a casino long ago, concocted this story. Then Kate texts friends. She text messages friends telling them, and we'll put it on the screen, the gas part is completely made up of the story, but the guy isn't. I had to make something up to make people feel bad. They also confessed to other people that it was a
But was he homeless at all, and was he gambling?
He was homeless, but he was in and out of casinos. They knew him, and they concocted this story together to
Did she take any of the money?
Well, we don't know that yet. Those details haven't emerged. But my feeling is if this proves to be true, they should be jailed.
This is a complete scam, and a lot of these GoFundMe deals, people feel they read it and they read a headline like, "Oh my God, the man bought shoes for the homeless person." It's always buying shoes or something.
But they're pulling the heartstrings with a veteran, a homeless veteran who goes out of his way to help a woman.
That's why it's better to give money to actual organizations that get the best ratings. And by the way, that Christine Blasey Ford with her $1 million, I haven't forgotten you either. The $1 million she's gotten for the Brett Kavanaugh false allegation.
McCabe, Strzok, all these people set up GoFundMe pages. Where is that money going, and why did they
I think this whole thing has to be re-examined.
Well, I need to share with you this. The president unveiled his support for a new criminal justice reform package, which those folks might need pretty soon. And it brought him an unlikely supporter. Laura, who do you think it was?
Jesse Jackson.
No, it's not Jesse Jackson. Van Jones. Now, this criminal justice reform, this is a big deal. Both sides wanted this for a long time. We haven't really seen it since the Clinton era. This would change sentencing rules. It creates some new incentives for rehabilitation once people are brought out of jail. Gives them a second chance. Van Jones, former Obama official, now on CNN saying this about President Trump.
I think you got to give him some credit. I say the 99 times I don't agree with the president, I'm going to give him hell. But on this one, I'll give him a salute and an applause. We've got to come together to help the people at the bottom.
Let me just say, the sneering Don Lemon, sneering at Van Jones, who actually has the integrity and a set of principles that allows him to say, we don't agree on pretty much anything, but I'm going to give him credit because this is something all these presidents said they were going to do. And by golly, Jared Kushner, by the way, had a huge, he formed a friendship.
This is a moment of unity. Unity is good. I think it's what people need. And you need. And Laura, we are seeing this across the country. Opponents coming together. The other day,
Yeah.
at the Houston International Airport, a girl, a Texas A&M student, Tiffany Easter, she spots Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz. She takes a picture with them together. Beto went over and congratulated Ted. You see them in the picture there? They took pictures with a number of people. This is a good impulse, a good thing for people to see. There's another dynamic duo that reunited this week, Laura, that I have to share with you. The 2012 Republican Dream Team, Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney, the new senator from Utah.
Oh, no.
Well, look at the video. It's very moving.
Must I?
And he said,
Good to see you. Look like happy man.